Hey guys and girls, this is Blue Magic. I've never done a video or any kind of podcast in this manner before, but I had something very unusual, very strange happen to me yesterday. Starting around early afternoon, it lingered on into about an incident that occurred around 1:40 this morning, and after several phone calls to different institutions afterwards, I found out some really startling news. But it all started for me with a phone call. This bizarre and almost unexplainable, unpredictable, no way of knowing type of phone call. How would I have knowing this would have happened? The phone call came in. It was around 4:30 p.m. It was my mother. I stay in touch with all my family and my mom and dad pretty regularly, but given the nature of the time, I think it was a bit unusual. But nevertheless, of course I answered. It's Mom. When I picked up the phone and answered, she sounded extremely hysterical, very frightened, very sad, crying, devastated almost. And my younger brother, who's an officer in the Air Force, currently stationed in Italy, he was on the line with her as well. And they both sounded pretty frantic, but he was doing all he could to keep composure, to try to keep her a bit calmer. So I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, what is this call about? My first instinct was, oh goodness, did one of my family members pass away suddenly? Well, as it turned out, the call became very odd in a way that I could have never predicted. She told me that the local medical center, RMC as it were, in Anniston, Alabama, had called her and told her that I gave my full name, birthday, somehow even social security number, come to find out, to her, and told her that I had been in a really basically a fatal car accident. It was extremely serious. I was in critical condition. And this happened in a part of Alabama that I am probably at least 4 hours away from where I actually live in the state. So it's really strange, right? So that accident occurred in a city called Sax, Alabama, somewhere I can't recall having ever been at any point in my entire life. I don't know anyone there, family, friends, or otherwise. But apparently this individual who was riding a motorcycle and somehow got pinned between another vehicle and was essentially stuck there, was bleeding out. They had to fly him over to RMC. And then earlier this morning, they flew him over to UAB, where come to find out, he died. He succumbed to his injuries. It was pretty awful. But then it raises the question, who is this random person? How would they have all of my number, contacts from my family, like my mother, even my mother-in-law, who's never lived in the state of Alabama ever? It was really strange to have all of that. And again, in addition to a social security number. So it was very strange. So I was like, well, I'm clearly not dead, to the best of my conscious knowledge. It'd be a crazy joke if somehow I were, right? So it got me thinking about all these different fields of study that I find interesting and do a lot of self-education in. Strange topics, even though they're proven more to be true now than not. Things involving string theory, quantum entanglement, and even the actual theoretical quantum physics that dive into like quantum immortality and entanglement, essentially asserting particles from across vast distances, whether in this dimension or another, can somehow always be connected together at a point and are always interconnected. So it got me thinking all this different fringe topic stuff, right? Who wouldn't? It's fun to entertain, even though it very easily could just be fraud, right? Well, this is where it gets more bizarre. So I called the hospital first and told them, yeah, this is really strange. And what was really strange, backtracking a bit, is what had happened a few hours earlier, that same day, which is still today, around 1:40 in the morning. So you have to backtrack and remember, they called me, my wife heard all this, my mother's, really upset, so was my brother. They're so incredibly relieved and then is equally perplexed by the situation as I still am, because at around 1:40 in the morning, the local PD from the city I do live in came to knock on the door, initially asking me who I was and if my wife was here, because somehow they'd gotten the same information from a police department 2.5 to 3 hours south of where I live. And were wanting to vet me, literally grilling me, even though they did it, respectfully. And for the most part, it's really odd at 1:40 in the morning to have police officers come to your house for no known or apparent reason and start soft grilling you and interrogating you to see if you are who you are, and more or less can prove it with enough information. And once they were satisfied, they just basically let me know the police department there and then the hospital had both told them that if something had happened to me, and I had apparently, was at that point, borderline deceased, had to be medevac to UAB. Well, that's really strange, right? Why would the police come here to corroborate something that happened several cities and counties over, still saying the suspect was claimed to have had my full first, middle, and last name, somehow my birthday, and my social security number from one number to the last? Very, very strange. Or at least I still think. So fast forward, earlier today, around midday, and then this afternoon, I reached back out to the hospital. And the hospital was, again, obviously, just like me, the police departments were confused, perplexed, couldn't understand what was going on, and couldn't really tell me much because the patient had to be airlifted out of there to UAB to have any chance of surviving, what would ultimately be a fatal car-related accident. Again, very, very strange stuff because, again, I don't know anybody that could possibly have this information. I never have and probably never will. So then I was like, well, what should I do? They referred me to the local PD there, Anniston Police Department, who had been the ones to obviously, call the accident in ahead, gave the information to the first responders and the officers on scene, the fire department, everybody would have been involved in such an insane situation. And as it would turn out, they still don't know exactly. The person is being referred to now that they corrected, supposedly that it wasn't me that died, that it's somehow now just another John Doe with no information. But I find it very odd and almost negligent if it has something to do with the PD that they would not find that out before calling my mother, my mother-in-law, calling looking for me, having the local police where I live come to my house for, I guess, a health and safety check of some kind. You don't do all that just based on an accident or a clerical error. So I'm still kind of perplexed by the whole situation, and I'm not really sure what to make of it because at this point, the PD, they accepted that it wasn't me, so did the hospital, but somehow still can't definitively on their end rule out that it wasn't, even though they have ruled it out directly with me. I guess it's more complex. It could be a case of some type of fraud. It could be some type of identity theft, but it's very strange that they were adamant that it was me, and they need my first, middle, last name, birthday, the month, the day, the year, my social security number, every number of it, my phone number to relatives. How do you just accidentally do that? If you're on the police side like that, that's a completely different human being. But nevertheless, it's very strange, it's very odd. I've never had an experience like this in my life. I don't know if it was some one of those bizarre glitch in the matrix quantum event type things, or if it's just simply explained by a mistake somehow made by the PD that doesn't even coincide with their protocol that they've obviously never made in the past. They showed me that. It's quite the enigma. But I would like to know if any of you have ever had experiences anywhere near this where essentially somebody with your name somehow died, because I feel like that does kind of tap into that quantum immortality theory, suggesting that you never, as far as your consciousness, your frequency, what makes you exist in any capacity, that it never dies. The body it's in may die, and right up to the point of death, it supposedly transfers to another you or another version of you living a completely different life in another timeline in a parallel universe on another Earth, almost identical to this one, but with historical and scientific alterations and changes, potentially more futuristic, perhaps more primitive. But in that sense, you don't die. Your consciousness just kind of blinks and you wake up in a new existence. That kind of incident and those kind of sightings and stories differ from mine in an honest way, is that I was playing with my child and my wife outside, playing basketball and some little games in our backyard up until the time I got that phone call. So I just find it to be very weird because I didn't experience any kind of near-death event or anything you could quantify as a perceived near-death experience. So in that regard, maybe it has nothing to do with any of that. But again, I've never made a recording like this. This is just raw live. I didn't script it. I try to do things like that as much as my brain will allow it because it feels to me more genuine, because I didn't take the time to overly write it out to the point of exaggerating or elaborating too much on a certain thing. I've tried in my very own way to keep it within under 15 minutes, which it looks like I'll do. But if you stuck with me this long, please, by all means. I don't know how this will be received. I'm really hoping it will be received well, not necessarily for just the attention of getting the likes and views, but moreover, I would like to know what you guys think. I'd love to hear some kind of comments because I've never in my life experienced anything like this, and I'm still not really sure what to make of it. This has been Blue Magic with Blue Encounters.